Welcome back, everybody, to another unexpected Dark Prison Road episode of Lockdown 23 in 1. That's right, Dark Road it is, and this one once again has no light at the end of it. We had a possible riot take place over the weekend in a Georgia state prison. 3 inmates killed and 13 injured. Not to mention where it took place and one of the individuals that was killed. Man, very sad story. I'll break it down here shortly. But first, as always, if you're new to the channel and enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is absolutely where you need to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. 3 inmates died and a dozen others were taken to a hospital with injuries after a possible riot on Sunday at a state prison in Georgia, authorities said. Picture that, right? Most people are like, yeah, I ain't doing too much today, probably barbecuing, day of rest. Meanwhile, in some prison, 3 inmates are getting shanked to death, and 12 others are injured fighting for their life. Crazy to think what's going on while you're relaxing, right? The Washington County Sheriff, Joel Cochran, said several major fights broke out early Sunday afternoon at a state prison in Davisboro, resulting in 13 prisoners being transported for treatment. One of them died in the hospital, Cochran said. 2 others deceased in the facility, which is a medium security prison with the capacity of a little over 1,500 inmates. In October, Cochran said criminal gangs were operating drug enterprises within Washington and other state prison facilities. Look, that's pretty much happening all across the country. And I said it once, I'll say it a million times, you ain't never gonna stop it. Maybe if you had like some Terminator AI guards, infrared and stuff like that, yeah, that might work. But then again, the inmates might start hacking them. Imagine if they got a droid on their team with a shank. God, man, it's game over. The sheriff added that the fighting was among inmates, but he believed one prison guard might have been hurt. In a statement, the Georgia Department of Corrections said the 3 dead prisoners were Ahmaud Hatcher, Jimmy Trammell, and Teddy Jackson. At approximately 1:25 p.m., an altercation began on the sidewalk among several inmates, at which time staff indicated procedures to clear the visitation area. During this process, several injured inmates were able to enter the visitation area. However, no visitors were injured and were safely escorted out of the facility. And thank God for that, because these visitations, man, there's kids and everything running around. But I can only imagine people are probably wondering, what's the sidewalk? How are these inmates able to just run into visitation? The best way that I could possibly think of it is how the prisons were designed that I was in. Typically, you got the housing units, and housing units surround the yard, and the visitation's usually right in the front of the compound next to master control. And whenever you have to make a movement in prison, typically you gotta walk on these sidewalks to go to the chow hall, to go to the main yard, to go to visitation. So if I were to guess, it was visitation day, which is Sunday and Saturday, and one of 2 things probably happened. Well, first and foremost, I definitely think all of it is gang related. Now, was it enemies spotting each other and going at it? I don't think that's the case. I think it might have been a little mix up over some contraband. Someone didn't get a pack, or someone probably stole a pack, knew that it was coming, intercepted it, because everybody that's been in the system knows COs, it doesn't matter. Contraband comes in through visitation, drones, COs, inmates. So that could easily be one of the situations taking place on why everyone started rumbling. Someone stole something from someone, or there's enemies all around. What blows my mind, though, is how crappy this facility must be ran. Because it said that these inmates were injured were able to run into the visitation room. Look, the majority of visitations I've seen, you got to get strip searched, go through some gates and doors before you even get in. So how are these guys running from inside the compound sidewalk into visitation? Makes absolute no sense to me unless that facility is ran worse than an abandoned water park. So major issues are taking place in this prison, if you were to ask me, especially when it comes down to security. I don't know nothing about any of them that passed away or got into a fight, but like I said, one of these individuals' brother spoke out, and it's sad, man. It says an Atlanta man is demanding answers after 3 inmates, including his brother, were killed as fights broke out inside Washington State Prison in central Georgia. It says one of the 3 killed was Jimmy Trammell. He was set to complete his 10-year sentence for felony burglary charges and be released from custody today. His brother said he did 10 years in prison and he didn't make it home. I was going to pick him up from the bus station, but I never got the chance. My heart goes out to that brother, man. I lost my brother as well. Not anywhere like this, but, I can relate on somewhat of a level. But But to think that this guy lost his life just a few hours before he was about to come home after doing 10 years is beyond tragic, man. I can't even fathom it. And if he was alive, maybe, I hate to say it, bleeding out or something, he was probably thinking about all those thoughts. I was right at the gate. How did this happen? But the report says the incident was under control and the prison still remains on lockdown. Look, man, when I was in prison, man, and something traumatic happened, someone gets stabbed, you might not even see it. Gang situation or something like that, the whole prison or that whole side of the yard, compound, whatever you want to call it, is going to be on lockdown. Depending on the situation, let's say someone dies. Man, they could lock it down for 6 months and do a full compound shakedown. God, those were the worst, man. I remember going through a few of them. Bringing around the metal detectors, the wands, and look, I'm here to tell you, Virginia does highly detailed shakedowns. So, it ruins a lot of stuff. But now let's go ahead and jump into a video coming from a news channel. They got some recordings of individuals calling in, breaking down the situation on what they seen while they were inside the visitation room. And I haven't heard any of it yet, so I'll give you my 2 cents along the way.
Inside Washington State Prison, a Sunday brawl left 3 inmates dead and families searching for answers. But an eyewitness telling us today it all happened inside the prison's visitation area, where she says a group of inmates burst through the door, bloodied and armed, leaving visitors scrambling.
It's really just now hitting me how dangerous it really was, how much worse it could have been. Something going on. We heard very loud, almost yelling coming from the walkie-talkies. You could hear her say, "Don't open that door, you can't come in here."
Shouting from the guard, first directed at inmates deeper into the facility, then to visitors, telling them to get out. The witness says the group overpowered a guard, taking his keys to then break into the visiting room.
The prisoners who
Wow.
were right behind her, hot on her heels, because there's blood and weapons, and they just busted through a door. They're standing between us and our loved ones.
The riot-style attack left 3 men dead, including 23-year-old Ahmad Hatcher. Hatcher's family says they are demanding answers and accountability, claiming he had warned his mother about unsafe conditions inside the prison.
Crazy to think how all this is unfolding though in the visitation, man. Them people must have been terrified. But they overpowered the guard and took his keys. Sounds to me like they're trying to damn escape. For the most part in many prisons, just a couple more doors. And that's a parking lot, freedom, home gate. Like the caller said, they're very fortunate. This could have been way worse.
It just was torn out of my chest. He was scared of his life. They were a cause of my son to get killed because they wasn't doing their job.
I don't know any of these individuals that lost their life, but of course, as always, my condolences go out to the victim's family and friends. But that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. There ain't too much intel in this situation just yet. I just got done reading an updated article and they're trying to say that it's all gang related. So I can only imagine what sparked everything. But if I were to guess, like I said, someone probably picked up a package they weren't supposed to touch. Only time will tell though, of course. One thing's for sure. There ain't gonna be no visitations jumping in that prison anytime soon. Just imagine all the families as well that knows that their son's in that prison. He might be a part of the mix a little bit. He's got some weird tattoos. You don't know exactly what they mean. They're probably on paranoid level 10. I know I'd be if my son was in there, man, Criminals or not, they still got loved ones. So prayers go out to y'all once again. Always remember, keeping in the back of your mind that you could go to a prison like this. And you could be the next one on a milk box or tabloid. So stay crime free and enjoy the sweet smell of the streets. Y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free.